all students are a gold mine. It is up to us to mine for the gold that's in them, to know that it's there and to keep digging. And even when it's uncomfortable and even when you feel like you've hit a wall or you feel like it's impossible to connect, keep trying anyway.
The education landscape is constantly evolving. Staying ahead of the trends is essential. Welcome to EdBuzz LA County, where we explore groundbreaking initiatives, inspiring stories, and innovative practices shaping the future of learning here in Southern California. As we celebrate Black History Month, we are thrilled to highlight the Equity Lead Grant, also known as the Genius Initiative. Launched under Senate Bill 114, this 5-year grant aims to address long-standing disparities in educational outcomes for Black, African American, and other marginalized students across California. Through professional learning, community collaboration, and research-backed strategies, the initiative seeks to shatter opportunity gaps and nurture the potential of every student. I'm Elizabeth Grasswich, Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications, and I'm joined now by Dr. Jamaal Williams, Director 3 in the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Division, and Dr. Tyisha Noise, Project Director 3 of the Center for the Advancement of Racial Equity. Good to have you both here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And, I wanted to just kind of start with grounding us in Black History Month and the importance of it. Why do we celebrate it, and why is it so important that we encourage our schools to celebrate it?
I think Black history gives us an opportunity each year to really put a spotlight on all of the excellent things that have happened throughout our history and the contributions that African Americans and Black Americans have made to the founding of the country, to today. And so I think that is, for me, as a Black person, I look forward to it every year. Now that I'm a father, I take my kids places that we can celebrate it. We went to Kenneth Hahn Park last weekend for Dr. King's birthday, and we're going to continue to do things throughout the community just to really make sure that my kids are aware. And in education, that's part of what we want to do. We really want to make sure that our students are being exposed to the great things that have happened, throughout history.
Absolutely. If I can piggyback on that, I think one of the most important parts is our understanding, right? Our evolving understanding of how important representation is in education. Right, that students connect more and more to stories that look like them, feel like them, taste like their flavor, right? And the more that we can provide that for students, I think the more agency we give them, the more empowerment they feel, and the more education feels like it belongs to them, which we believe is essential in high achievement.
Absolutely. And we're so glad to have you both join us here today as we celebrate this month. But one of the other things we get to celebrate today is this amazing new grant that you all are leading, the Equity Lead Grant, which is also called the Genius Initiative. Dr. Williams, can you tell us a little bit about what got that started?
Yeah, it's really fitting that we get to talk about this during Black History Month, because this has been something that's been in the making, really, many years. This legislation related to the lowest performing student subgroup was first brought forward by Assemblymember Shirley Weber. And she tried for many years, 5 or more years, to really get that legislation passed, because, as many of us know, the lowest performing subgroup has been African American students. And as she tried to get that legislation passed, she was backed by our own superintendent, Dr. Deborah Duardo, my predecessor, Dr. Catherine Edwards, and Pamela Gibbs, who is our guru up in Sacramento, trying to get things done. And so that was kind of the beginnings of this. And then it moved forward, and when Shirley Weber was promoted to Secretary of State, her daughter, Dr. Akilah Weber, took up the torch. And although we were not able to get that lowest performing subgroup passed, here we are today with the Equity Lead Grant, which is is part of what we were trying to do. And so we have the opportunity to stand on the shoulders of giants that wouldn't say no, that kept pressing forward. So now we have an opportunity to really try to mitigate some of the disparities that we're seeing based on race and ethnicity with our students. And so as part of the grant, we're fitting in as part of California's statewide system of support. So it's not just all on us, right? We're coming in and we're working as part of the system, and we want to make sure that we are collaborating. And so we have LACOE as one of the statewide leads. We have King County Office of Education, Sonoma County Office of Education. We're partnering with UCLA Center for the Transformation of Schools, because we know it takes a village perspective, right? We cannot do this by ourselves. And so we have many partners that are going to help us as we engage in this work.
Well, and we've seen those partnerships work in the past. If we look at the community school models and some of the other things that we've done. So that's exciting that we're approaching it in that way. You know, Dr. Noise, we've long known about these opportunity gaps that exist, and the Genius Initiative is going to address those. What's going to be different in this approach?
I think what's really exciting about the Genius Initiative is, first and foremost, that it is grounded in research-backed framework. My boss's predecessor, the great Dr. Catherine Edwards, right, spearheaded and project directed and did a lot of the authoring of the Supporting the African American Learner research document, which is organized around 4 principles. And what I love about it is that it takes a lot of information, right? There's a lot of information out about how to close gaps. And I think one of the things that all educators struggle with is, how do I make this digestible and usable? And that's a big part of the focus of Genius, is how do we make this vast research? How do we bring it into 4 basic categories? How do we allow schools to sort of assess themselves and say, here's where we need to begin, and then to offer sort of a side-by-side approach where we walk alongside them in implementing over the next 3 years of this grant to do that work. And so it's focused on closing. When we think about opportunity gaps, we think about the fact that the beloved Dr. Tyrone Howard, in his most recent book, Equity Now, talks about the fact that Black and brown students, for example, approximately 60% of all Black and brown students are concentrated in the lowest funded schools in the nation. It's a nationwide number. Over 15% of students that are classified as students in need of IEPs are students of color, right? If we add to that the idea that on any given day, up to 40% of students in any classroom have experienced ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, in the last year, right? We understand that those cascading events create a ripple effect on a campus, right? And it makes it that much harder to get students what they need, right? We stretch fewer dollars across a greater number of challenges and issues. And so what we aim to do is help folks to close those gaps, right? How do we think about, if the issue on a school campus is mindset, right, which is principle 1, if this is about, we don't really know our students, we don't know how to connect to them, we don't know how to give them what we need, there's training and support to do that. If we think about principle 2, which is focused on systems, building equitable systems, how do we make sure that equal numbers of Black, brown students with IEPs, English language learners, have opportunities at AP and advanced placement courses, right? That there's a systemic way to organize a master schedule on a campus to make sure that that's possible. How do we make sure that students with IEPs have the very best teachers on a campus? We lay them in the master schedule first, right? So there's a principle around that work. Culturally responsive, relevant, sustaining pedagogy. How do we make sure that teachers are equipped to teach to the students in the room, not just who the book was written about, but the students sitting in the room? Right now, nationally, over 70% of the seats sitting in any public school, right, are students of color. We've got to teach for the kids who are in the room, not just who we thought was going to be there, right? And then fourth and final, which stems from the Beyond the Schoolhouse report, right, where we discuss a lot about all of the things that are happening to students outside of school that show up in classrooms with them, like mobility, like being unhoused, being in a foster care system, and all of those things. And principle number 4 is really focused on helping schools find the right partnerships so that we can wrap our love and our affection and our support around students so they really have the chance to become their highest and best selves.
Oh, that's awesome. Dr. Williams, can you explain what GENIUS stands for?
Yes, GENIUS is an acronym. And actually, my colleague here, Dr. Noise, developed the acronym, so I'm going to let her explain it.
Genius in the Genius Initiative stands for Genuine Empathy and Nurturing of Intellect for Underserved Students. recognizing that while we are censoring the experiences of Black and African American students, at the end of the day, we want all underserved students to have great opportunity. We want to close the opportunity gaps for every underserved group of students. And so we named it Genius.
I love it. I think one of the challenges is it is a set amount of funding, and it's going to be stretched across a lot of counties. Dr. Williams, how will that work? There's so much work that needs to be done.
Yeah, you're right. It's a set amount of funding, and our goal or the ask of us is to serve the entire state. Right. And so to do that, we have the partners that I talked about earlier. We have King County, we have Sonoma County. And what we're looking to do is offering different tiers of the work. So we cannot get deep in the weeds with schools across the entire state, but we can offer a surface level training on supporting the African American learner. We can provide tools, we can provide resources that educators can tap into that will give them an idea of how they can do this work. Some really concrete examples and some things that they can take on day one. And if I'm a teacher, I can go into my classroom and I can do better than I did yesterday. But for the grant, we also want to go deeper, right? Because our goal is to prove that this works. I want to actually pull out a quote here that really speaks to our ultimate goal with the grant. And it's actually the first page in the Supporting the African American Learner publication. And this is from Congressman Augusta Hawkins. He says, "Black children are the proxy of what ails American education in general. And so, as we fashion solutions which help Black children, we fashion solutions which help all children. It is with this mindset and nonpartisan mission that we reach to empower all education stakeholders across the country." And so that is our mindset as we engage in this partnership with the UCLA Center for the Transformation of Schools. We're not just seeking to prove that if we use the framework that Tyisha just so eloquently described, Dr. Noise, it will improve outcomes for Black students, because we know it will do that. But what the research also suggests is that it will improve outcomes for white students and brown students and Native American students and LGBTQ students and all students, right? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to dig deep with 30 schools throughout the state. We're going to provide them with the training, that tier 1 level training that everybody across the state will have access to. Then beyond that, we're actually going to dive in deeper with a community of practice. We've hired some educators who have worked at some of the most difficult schools in the state and have had success. And they're going to be doing one-on-one coaching with principals. We're going to be boots on the ground with these schools to help them really enact these research-based principles that we know can have a lasting impact and transformative impact in the lives of these students.
That's so exciting. I just get excited hearing about it. Dr. Noise, can you dive a little deeper into the 3 tiers that Dr. Williams spoke of?
Absolutely. This is my favorite part. My favorite part of my job is the opportunity to train and coach and learn with other educators. And so tier 1 for us is going to be comprised of a 3-day sort of institute. Right now, we're calling it Freedom Dreaming. I love supporting the African American learner, but what we want to help people think about when they think about this research, when they dive into the framework, is let's get beyond the simple goal of raising test scores. Right? Let's get beyond the simple metrics, but let's freedom dream. Let's dream. If we could create the best possible environment for our kids, how would we do that? Right? And using the framework to do that. So it's 3-day sort of intensive where we will walk people through all 4 principles of the research, going over the research with them in detail, and bringing them expert practitioners who are doing this work successfully on the ground right now so they can ask their questions and so that they can be encouraged and inspired, right? Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to act when you believe that the problem feels insurmountable. But when you get to sit in the room with someone just like you in the same kind of position that you're in, doing the work that you want to do, I think that great inspiration and wisdom comes from that. So that's going to be tier 1. It'll be 3-day institutes. They will be completely free. All 3 COEs ultimately will be able to offer them throughout the state, and we're really excited about that. Tier 2 for us is the community of practice. We're going to run a sort of singular differentiated community of practice. As we mentioned, right, the Supporting the African American Learner framework has 4 principles. And so there will be a community of practice focused on each principal, and schools that participate will get to choose, right? If you're brand new to this journey, you're like, I didn't know anything about racial disparities in students before now, and I just need to get my mind around this. They would adopt or join the Principal 1 COP, right? If they're like, okay, I'm a district level leader, my schools are running a couple of things, but I want to think more broadly about how we get this done, right? Then we have a system COP, and we're excited. I'm so excited about the systems leader that we're bringing to help run that. Again, Principle 3, right? Culturally responsive and sustaining and revitalizing pedagogy. We're going to bring some expert practitioners who have done brilliant work curricularly, right? And so we're not going to bring someone who's just the director of instruction who has done a rollout, but people who design curriculum. This is their area of study and who are still teaching. And so we're really excited about that. And for Principle 4, we're going to be we have collected multiple partners to come alongside schools. So if you need to raise your math scores, but you also need after school, we're going to bring you a program that you can use in the math class and after school to raise math scores, right? And different things like that. And so COP number 4, or the fourth differentiation, if you will be focused on what we call mitigating the accumulation of disadvantage, right? Leveraging community partnerships to make sure kids have everything that they need. And so that's tier 2. And then tier 3 for us is coaching, right? So making ourselves available not only for technical assistance, but also for coaching, as Dr. Williams mentioned, being able to get on the ground with principals side by side, walking through schools, walking through classrooms, talking through if we need to sit down with them and look at their own master schedule and go, have you considered this or that? Have you considered this method? Have you considered looking at it this way? We believe that the biggest piece of the knowing doing gap is capacity, right? Principalship is a big job, right? And we want to be there to support school leaders, to walk alongside them, to sort of give them another brain, right? To help them process all that needs to go into doing this kind of work.
Well, and you have a big kickoff event coming on board, right? That's coming soon. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Our kickoff event is going to be located at Faithful Central in Inglewood. We're excited to do it there on March the 18th. So we're going to run March 18th, 19th, and 20th. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It is available. So for those of you who are like, I need that link right now, it's on LACOE's OMS. So we're already in the LACOE OMS system where you can sign up for that learning opportunity. But we're really excited to launch from Faithful Central. For most people who know, the civil rights movement, as it has been led by the African American community, was very much supported by and very much bolstered by, right, its connection to the Black church. And so Faithful Central is actually a church building, but they are pillars of the community. They've been a part of the community for over 80 years, and it's really neat to be able to partner with that kind of community organization to launch a grant opportunity like this.
That's awesome. Now I'm going to ask you to zoom forward, as you think about, in 5 years, what outcomes would you like to see from this work?
For me, the ultimate outcome is every one of our babies being able to pursue their hopes and dreams without the barriers that are currently in front of them. Right. And so that's for all students, and especially African American students who historically have faced more barriers than some other groups of students. And so the reason we weren't asked, this wasn't part of the grant. They didn't say you have to study yourself. We partnered with UCLA Center for the Transformation of Schools. They are going to study our work. Yes. We are going to look at it because we want receipts at the end of this grant. We want to be able to say, like I said in the beginning, based on that quote, that not only does this work help improve outcomes for African American students, it improves outcomes for students across the board. Mm-hmm. And so that is our ultimate outcome. At the end of this grant, we want to be able to take to the CDE report that shows chronic absenteeism, suspensions, reading test scores, math test scores, science, all of the things that we think about when we talk about these disparities in student outcomes have been impacted by the work and by the framework laid out in that document.
Oh, that's awesome. And I, shout out to, of course, to the UCLA Center for Transformation of Schools. I mean, they've just been awesome partners throughout this. They're beyond the schoolhouse. You all mentioned that before. Again, excellent research and documentation. So, this is the second time I've had the pleasure of interviewing you both. And you both have such personal passion around this topic, which is why it's such a pleasure to speak to you. So can you both share a little bit about that passion?
I think for me, in some ways, I am the kid, right, that we wrote Supporting the African American Learner to support. I am a first generation, all the things in education, right? My mom was a teenage mom. I'm first generation college, grad school, doctorate. And those opportunities were created for me by being in schools where doors were wide open, where I could lean in, where I could do things I enjoy. And so it's personal to me because the trajectory of my whole family is different because of a good education. And so I wake up every day thinking about how do we make sure that every possible barrier is removed so children feel like they all have that same opportunity. My family is different because of a good education. My life is different, right? If I look back at what the books said about who I should be at this stage in my life, I should not be sitting on this stage having this conversation with you. I should not have a doctorate. I should be a lot of other things according to the research, but a good education, educators who cared about me, who saw what was great in me, who saw whatever talents they felt like I had and cultivated them and put me in spaces to have those talents cultivated are the reason I can sit here. And every single day, that is the thing I want more than anything else for every child in school, is to feel that and have that kind of experience.
It's beautiful.
I think it's similar for most of us. I think our why comes from our personal experience. And for me, my experience has been that most of the people that I grew up with were not able to overcome the barriers that were in front of us. And because of that, we have very different life outcomes right now. I'm still friends with the kids, the people that I was friends with at a young age, but we cannot do the same things. You know, as I'm planning a family vacation this summer, I can't invite my brothers and sisters and cousins and friends because they don't have the ability to do that with their family. And that's something that it makes me sad, but it gives me hope when we're able to do things like this, that I can make that difference. I can play a small part in helping make that difference in the lives of other students. Because it's very important. It's real. Like when we look at the statistics that are in that supporting African American learning, you say, oh, well, African American kids are suspended more. That's a school to prison pipeline. They're not achieving as much in these different academic areas. Well, for some people, it's like, oh, that's a data point. For me, like I can point to real people in my life, and it's heartbreaking, right? And I know that if this was in place, we would have made a difference for many of those kids, because there's a lot of genius that is not being cultivated, and we have the opportunity to help cultivate that genius.
I love you putting that word into context of the grant and the work. It's so true. And you know, you both are such experts in this area. And so when you think about what you'd want to say to other teachers, educators, people who are working with our students, what advice would you give them in terms of cultivating that genius in every student?
I'll say, you know, for educators, believe in your students, right? One of the biggest challenges, and this goes back to our first start with mindset, is research shows that educators tend to have lower expectations for African American students or brown students than they have for white students. It's vitally important that we have a strength-based approach to all of our students. And so as an educator, if you don't have that same approach, if I ask you, you know, do you have the same expectations for all students? Most of us would say yes, but we have to interrogate ourselves and really wonder, right, is that true? And if it's not true, that doesn't mean you're a bad person, because we all have bias. Our expectations are based on what we've been exposed to. And if what we've been exposed to doesn't lend to us having high standards for all kids, we can do something about it. We just have to take that step. If I'm a parent, I'm going to say, you know, you are the center of the village for your child. Have hope. Work with the teachers, work with the school, always advocate for your child, realize that they have genius within them, and it's our job to uncover it, right? So never give up on your kid, and always be at their side, and we can push forward together as part of this village. And then for students, kind of similar message for you: believe in yourself. You have so much talent within you that is just waiting to come out, right? And so your K-12 education experience is an opportunity for you to learn what you like, what you don't like, maybe what some of your relative strengths are, but always remember that you have greatness within you. And in Black History Month is a wonderful time for us to recognize and read up on some of the stories of those who have come before us that have accomplished great things that they never could have imagined. And I could say never could have imagined I'd be here as a director of Los Angeles County Office of Education. I don't think Dr. Noise could have imagined this. So like this are beyond my wildest dreams when I was a kid, right? And so if I could do it, any of you could do it.
That's tough to follow, right?
Good job.
But I'll echo a couple of sentiments. And I think the first one for me is all students are a gold mine. It is up to us to mine for the gold that's in them, to know that it's there and to keep digging. And even when it's uncomfortable and even when you feel like you've hit a wall or you feel like it's impossible to connect, keep trying anyway. As a former special educator, I've had the privilege of serving students who many educators before me had a long list of things those children could not do. And then we met. And then I discovered their genius, discovered the gold in them, and then sought to cultivate it. Some of those relationships I still have today with some of the educators and with students, because once you unleash it, our kids are unstoppable. But you got to know it's in there. And we have to build the tenacity that it takes to keep coming back to the table with them day after day after day until we can find the great, wonderful, shining thing that's on the inside of them. And it's worth it. It is worth it to change the lives of a child, of any student. It just is. And I think to Dr. Williams' other point about students is that, yes, you can. You absolutely can. Everything in my background says that I should not be sitting here. But here I am, right? I'm a living, breathing witness to the fact that you can do what has been put in front of you and that you have the right to advocate for yourself, to make some demands, right? On the adults who step into the room with you every day, to meet you where you are, to help you find your way. And ask all the questions. There are no dumb questions. Ask all the questions. If you don't know and it doesn't make sense, ask questions. If you want to learn more about a thing, ask questions. If you're bored and you want to know why something matters, ask the questions, because it's our job as educators to meet you right where you are and walk alongside you until you get where you want to be. It is our job to serve you, to love you, to care for you, and you have the right to walk into a class on any given day, on any campus, anywhere, and expect to be cared for. So advocate, know that, believe that, and carry that faith into classrooms with you. You can do anything.
I knew this was going to be a wonderful conversation. It was. Your passion is contagious, and I'm just so glad both of you are leading this work. So I want to thank Dr. Jamaal Williams and Dr. Tyisha Noise for joining us today and for sharing your invaluable insights about the Equity Lead Grant and the Genius Initiative. Your passion and dedication to empowering marginalized students and creating lasting change in education are truly inspiring. We look forward to seeing the incredible impact of this initiative in the years to come. I'm Elizabeth Grasswitch. I'll see you next time on EdBuzz.